Defending Utah covers the stories others are just too often afraid to touch.
They don't nibble around the edges when it comes to pointing out threats to our liberty. They're not afraid to name names and call out organizations.
This is Defending Utah Radio, every Friday morning at 9 on K-Talk 1640. Defending Utah. Think right and wrong, not right and left. Join Defending Utah, because if you're not already on a government watch list, you should be.
Okay, welcome back to Defending Utah Radio, where we think right and wrong, not right and left. I am Ben McClintock, here in studio with
Micah Turner for Saturation Saturday.
And
Kevin
Paulson, which probably...
For Saturation Saturday!
You gotta get a little bit closer to the mic. And before we get into the meat of the program, I thought we'd have Micah read a email from one of our listeners. Micah,
yes.
here you go. You've never read this before.
No, I've never read this before.
So if you're going to choke up and cry, we're going to know about it.
The title of the email is Laughing Stock. This should be good.
I'm ready to laugh.
I'm about to unsubscribe from your podcast feed. Your show is like a bunch of wild laughing hyenas. Never serious, even with ultra-serious topics. The dumb jokes from your sidekick are not funny and sometimes awkward. Killed a wabbit. And I'm not exactly sure why you don't put the whole show into the podcast. Frequently I've been listening, and then suddenly the show just ended after a mere 9 minutes. You need to consider making some changes.
Like he loves it.
Yeah.
He wants more.
I guess so. You need to consider making some changes, or you're going to have a hard time building a loyal, listening audience. Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Bob.
Say thanks,
Thanks, Bob. We really appreciate the feedback, but because, we need feedback to be able to do better. So let's
digress at all.
No, not at all.
I don't know what Bob was talking about.
No, not at all.
We never go off on tangents.
No, never.
And we never treat serious things lightly.
Either that or I do it so I don't cry.
Some people cope with things differently.
Yeah.
Sorry. So we have, in the past, it's been a while, like 6 months? We did the first 4 principles in the proper role of government. But now that we have our new book out, The Proper Role of Government, a 21st Century Manifesto for Good Government, that you can buy at defendingutah.org by clicking on the store tab, I thought it'd be good to go back and revisit some more of those principles and encourage people to be able to get this book, because this book is really important to help yourself become educated, as well as to help those around you understand these things better and be able to get the word out more with the text of this book, because the book is not just a reprint of Ezra Taft Benson's Proper Role of Government. We then go into the 15 principles and explain where they came from and then how to do it. So with that,
With a pickaxe.
That's how each section ends, is with a pickaxe.
This is how you do proper role of government.
This is how you do it. And so we did first 4. Now we're going into principle 5. So I'm going to read the 5th principle by Ezra Taft Benson, and then we can discuss. So, quote, I hold that the Constitution denies government the power to take from the individual either his life, his liberty, or property, except in accordance with moral law, that the same moral law which governs the actions of men when acting alone is also applicable when they act in concert with others, that no citizen or group of citizens has any right to direct their agent, the government, to perform any act which would be evil or offensive to the conscience if that citizen were performing the act himself outside the framework of government. So
huge. I mean, this thing alone, this point alone is life-changing.
Right.
I mean, I know you hate hearing me tell stories about when I was trying to run for city council.
Closer.
But when I was running, the registrar for Salt Lake, that takes everybody's information when you're running. Anyway, I was kind of always hesitant to tell her my thoughts because I didn't know what.
Because she probably disagreed with
what
you.
tricks was, yeah, I figured, well, she works behind the counter over there, so definitely she's not an anarchist, so we're not in the same camp. So anyway,
Safe assumption.
I decided to share with her my feelings one day, and I said, you cannot delegate something to government, since our rights come from God, we delegate our power to government to act on our behalf. If I can't do it, I can't delegate it. And I explained that to her, and she just got quiet, and she looked me right in the eyes, and she said, Kevin, no one's ever explained that to me before. That makes so much sense. And she really meant it.
That's awesome.
It was incredible. And then she was rooting for me after that.
That's awesome.
It was really fun.
People, it's natural law. When truth is given any time, not let alone equal time, it wins because it's just natural and people naturally gravitate that. And so you just reiterated what he basically said is that moral law, that government can't do something that us as individuals can't do.
Right. Yeah, and if it's wrong for me to do it, I can't have government do it for me and then expect that to be okay.
So and I think this is an important difference because people say, well, we get government because we're stronger together. Well, being stronger doesn't mean you can do something.
Doesn't mean strong arming.
Doesn't mean moral.
Yeah.
And so it's important. So, like, just for an example, if I were to steal from Micah by myself, that's wrong. Now, getting together and us voting, Kevin and I, all of a sudden we get together and say
2 on 3, man, or 2 on 1.
It's democracy. We all voted. Your wallet's mine. Now is that stealing now moral?
It seems okay.
It seems okay, right?
But it's democracy. Yeah, I mean, it drives me nuts. All the movies and schooling, they talk about, we're spreading democracy. But what was it Mark Twain said? Democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for dinner.
Yeah.
It's mob rule. It's might makes right. It's biggest, strongest wins. It's minority gets screwed, really.
And of course, the Constitution demands that there is no democracy in the United States. It demands a Republican form of government, I believe, in Article 4.
Which is rule of law, and law based on true principles.
Yeah. The federal government shall guarantee every state and union a Republican form of government.
There it is. We're done. This episode is over. That's all we need to say. So what's funny is people will agree with this, and then you start talking about applications, and they freak out.
That's when everybody freaks out. You can talk in platitudes all day long, and everybody's all on the same page as you. But as soon as you start applying those things, like we talked about in the previous things about like government school,
you mean church?
Yeah.
Government church, right?
Government church,
right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's apply this principle. So,
do I have the ability as an individual to take somebody's life, liberty, or property to pay for my child's individual education?
Right. I of course do not. Could I go to my neighbor, pull out a gun, and say, Jim Jones?
That's an interesting name you chose there.
Give me your right.
But your name is so bad. Give me money.
So give me your money because my kid is not getting the education I hoped for. So I'm going to make you pay for it.
I'm going to throw more money.
And you know what? You're going to benefit someday. This is the argument I always hear. Mm-hmm. You're going to benefit someday because my kid is smarter.
It's an investment in the future.
Sure.
Because let's say it is an investment. Do I, as an individual, have the right to rob you at gunpoint to invest for you?
Clearly not.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, of course, we have Social Security program,
which is immoral. So Benson uses an illustration that I think lays this out for us. Yeah. He says he talks about the sheriff now does for them, the people got together, only that which they have the right to do for themselves, nothing more. He says, but suppose Pioneer A wants another horse for his wagon. He doesn't have the money to buy one, but since Pioneer B has an extra horse, he decides he is entitled to share in his neighbor's good fortune. Is he entitled to take his neighbor's horse? Obviously not. If his neighbor wishes to give it or lend it, that's another question. But so long as Pioneer B wishes to keep his property, Pioneer A has no just claim to it. If A has no power to take B's property, can he delegate any such power to the sheriff? No. Even if everyone in the community desires that B give his extra horse to A, they have no right individually or as a group to force him to do it. So there is no such thing as a collective right that doesn't belong to an individual.
Right.
But Ben, what about the social contract?
Yeah, right. The social contract that needs to protect us from ourselves.
I'd like to see but that's just if social contract violates natural law.
Somebody told me that once, and I said, "Really? where is it? That's what
I'd like to read the social contract.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know. There's a contract, right? Where is it? You were like born here. I'm like, well, I was born here. That doesn't mean that I just have to do whatever you say. Where's the contract?
Well, if you're going to be a social contract, maybe it doesn't exist. It's actually like a satanic counterfeit to natural law, is what maybe I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment.
Yeah, and so this is where I get into hot water sometimes with other members of the church that are all in favor of drug laws. And I say, well, wait a minute here. So you might think it's immoral for somebody to do that, to pollute their bodies with drugs. Okay, fine, you can think that. But what about do you have the God-granted right to go deprive them of their property because they're damaging their body and lock them up and put them in jail just because they're doing that? And I think
what our right is to promote good decency. Our job is to promote morality and to help that individual not to want to do those things
of their own free will, to help educate them. But clearly I don't have the right. Somebody's smoking a joint down the street. He's not puffing it in my face. He's not interfering with my rights. Do I have the right to go pull the joint out of his mouth, throw it on the ground, put him in handcuffs, and haul him off to a cage? Clearly I don't. And so I can't have the police do that on my behalf. So it is immoral to try to enforce or enact these drug laws which say you can't possess this substance that God put on the earth, or you can't sell it to your neighbor. But
that's an important thing. Is some people I think that would be upset with that is they automatically equate that. They give a straw man, right? They would say, well, that means you want everybody doing drugs.
Right.
Which is ridiculous.
It's like, for example, let's take it one step further. I am a Mormon, and I believe I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I believe that it's wrong to baptize children. It says right in the Book of Mormon. In fact, it's a grievous sin in the Book of Mormon. It's bad because it's this idea. I believe that you're not accountable.
You mean baptize like babies?
Baptize babies. Yeah. Baptize babies. They're not accountable yet, so they can't make that choice, and it doesn't mean anything.
And they haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah, they haven't done anything wrong. They're innocent.
What are you talking about? They cried.
So would it be obviously it would be wrong for me to try to force Catholics to stop being Catholic, to try to make a law that says you can't be to outlaw Catholicism or outlaw infant baptism. They're doing what they believe is right. They're not causing any harm intentionally to their children. They love their children, and
babies are getting a bath.
Yeah, and so
maybe a shower. Really,
win-win.
Win-win.
Yeah, I don't see it any differently. I see that as the same kind of thing.
So we should be not that. Yeah, you wouldn't want to do a law against infant baptism. We would just use our persuasion. And long suffering, to get them to do the right thing.
Yeah, and I think infant baptism is immoral, but it's not. This isn't one of those things that I always bring it back to the non-aggression principle. This is something that it applies in every one of these points. Is the initiation of the use of force is immoral, and so it's only okay to use force when you're countering force, and I think it just comes down to what God. Has asked us to how he has asked us to be with our fellow men.
Yeah. Let me finish this off let's go to Principle 6. But before we do that, President Benson, I think he goes back again and gives us the fundamental principle. He says, since God created man with certain inalienable rights, and man, in turn, created government to help secure and safeguard those rights, it follows that man is superior to the creature. Man is superior to the creature which he created. Man is superior to government. That is so bizarre to most people that we've lost that idea. But we are superior to government. They are the created. We are the creator and should remain master over it, not the other way around. So many times, I've mentioned this on past podcasts, we had a home birth and somebody asked us, they said, is that legal? As if I'm going to have to wait for my master, my God, the government, to tell me what I'm allowed to do. No, I'm the creator. I am over it. It asks me what it's allowed to do. That's what the Constitution is. It's a delegation. It's power that we delegated to it, and we need to start remembering that.
Well, your wife is the creator. You only help for 10 seconds.
I'm deleting that out. But she's not the creator of the government. We're talking about man being the creator of the government.
But you know what I mean.
So principle 6. Principle 6. Let's move on to principle 6.
I am hereby resolved that under no circumstances shall the freedoms guaranteed by the Bill of Rights be infringed. In particular, I am opposed to any attempt on the part of the federal government to deny the people their right to bear arms, to worship, and to pray when and where they choose, or to own and control private property.
So those are some key things right there that he mentioned. So
There's a lot of stuff in there.
The right to bear arms. So this idea nowadays that people think that there's an excuse to be able to limit your ability to be able to protect yourself or your family. But here he says he opposes any movement by government to be able to do that.
Fully automatics.
Nuclear weapons.
I'm all for it.
I want a tank.
Because the whole purpose of it is to be able to maintain a free society. If the thing that you created, the creature, has the ability to be stronger than its creator, you've flipped upside down the thing that we said in the last principle.
I believe we call that Frankenstein.
Right.
Well, and what could be worse than a government having? So you say, oh, private individuals. What if they have nuclear weapons? What if they have really powerful guns? That sounds horrible to these people.
What if a group of psychopaths have like thousands of nuclear weapons,
and you're not allowed to defend yourself?
Mutually assured destruction, and there's nothing you can do. What are the greatest calamities on Earth that have ever occurred have all been governments.
So if anybody that thinks that an individual shouldn't have access to the weapons to protect themselves, just think of an individual in government and imagine them having like people that hate Hillary Clinton. Do you think she should have sole authority to control nuclear weapons? Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. And then if you're a liberal, do you think that Donald Trump should have sole authority to control that? I mean, that's insane. Yeah. That's as insane.
And clearly, nobody has the right to threaten you. I mean, if someone threatens you, then they clearly they're expressing their intention to harm you. That's when you can use force to stop them. So if someone goes around making threats, death threats, clearly you have the right to do something to stop them from harming you. But other than that,
so he mentions the Bill of Rights in general, but then 3 specifics. So the first 3 of the 3 specifics is the right to bear arms. Second is the right to practice one's religion unmolested. Now, there was a court case back in the 1870s or 80s called the Edmunds-Tucker Act. And this went to the Supreme Court with the Reynolds v. United States, or the United States v. Reynolds, whatever order it went in, and the court ruled that the government, that you had the freedom of thought, that you could believe whatever you wanted to, but that the government had the right to control how you practice your religion. Huh. And so President Benson's saying that this is that ruling, that opinion by the Supreme Court is a violation of natural law, and that is a violation of the proper role of government, and that it leads to tyranny when you start to do that.
But then you got the people that say, well, the Supreme Court judged it, and that's their job, is to decide what's constitutional and what's okay.
Then they hate the Founding Fathers, and they think that we should have listened to King George. Anybody that says that would have gone along with King George.
Anything that says that should read, I believe, Article 3. It's like 6 paragraphs. That's it. That's the Supreme Court's authority. It's not that big.
And it gives Congress, the Constitution gives Congress the ability to say that the courts can't even rule on stuff. So the idea that they have power to do the right law or to say different things, it's ridiculous. To control, right here, with, like I said, with the Edmunds-Tucker and with the what's it called, Reynolds case, they wrote law saying that the government could do something that's not authorized in the Constitution.
Right. They're basically just there to issue an opinion about
a certain
whether
case.
It's constitutional or not.
Right.
And if they're wrong, you don't obey them.
There's so many cases that have been overturned, like saying that slavery was legal. The Supreme Court was the Almighty God, the unchanging God, then that would still be the case.
You don't let just because one of these government branches declares something does not make it so.
Does not make it so. So
let's make pi 3. Let's just round it to 3.
Oh, we did a show about that. There was actually somebody was trying to pass a law that said
rounded it up. It was like in Iowa or someplace. They rounded it to 3.2.
I think it was Indiana. 3.1. I think it was Indiana.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
But either way, whatever it was, the state tried to change.
It was like in the late 1800s. Some guy was like, "I'm the best."
I thought it was recent.
And I figured out that pi is a facade, basically, and this is the number, and it works. Yeah,
and it doesn't.
He even tried. He also tried something else really absurd.
And he's
I
the
can't
founder
remember
of
the name.
Marie Callender's.
There you go.
Yeah, and essentially, this guy, he had like a campaign for months about this and stuff in the newspaper, and then apparently some mathematician from some local university showed up, gave like a 20-minute lecture about why that's absurd, and the state legislature was like, "Oh, well, I guess we're done with that." It was like,
why were they even entertaining that?
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing, what if they had to go to the courts? We sued against this, and the Supreme Court ruled, yes, pi is now 3.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff they do.
Should I read the next one?
Yes.
Okay. I consider ourselves at
No, wait. We're still in the third one, so the right of both. The right to both. And we're number 6.
Oh, we're still on number 6?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about, you already covered.
So there was the 3 things that they said specifically. So the Bill of Rights. So the third one is the right to both own and the ability to control property.
Oh, okay. You're reading from our better pamphlet.
Sorry, yes.
I'm just looking at this.
So we're still back in the Principle 6, and the 3 things that he mentioned out of the Bill of Rights specifically. So we've got 3 essential forms of government. You have communism that says that the government owns and controls the property. You have fascism that says that you own the property, Kevin and Micah, but the government tells you what to do with it. And then there's the proper role.
Which is a lot like the first one.
And then there's the proper role that says that you own it and you control it without any type of influence from the government. So why does that matter? What's the difference? Why does it matter that you get to have that piece of paper that has your name on it and you get to be able to control it afterwards?
Because it really goes back to the fundamental question of what is ownership. I had this discussion with my dad the other day. I asked him, well, what is ownership? And he's like, you have a title to the property. That's it? That's owner. I'm like, what about my socks? I'm wearing my socks.
Let's go to 1930 Italy.
Where's the title for my socks? I don't have a title that says I own my socks. Well, what is ownership?
Possession is 9/10 of the law.
And ultimately, what do you own? You own your body and your labor.
Yeah.
And so then you are born into this world, and then you start exchanging, right? I'm going to trade some time and effort for some property this guy has over here. And so you just start trading with other people.
Yep.
And that's it. That's all there is to it.
No. Ownership, I guess, is claim, use, defend.
Yep.
That's what ownership is.
Which is natural law.
And you can't use your stuff if somebody else controls it.
Right.
So it's a violation of property rights. It's not ownership. You don't have full ownership if you do not have full control of your property. Somebody else has at least a partial ownership of your property if you can't do whatever you want with it.
Well, and the power to tax is the power to destroy. If somebody else has claim to your property and can tax it, then they can take it.
Yep. So continuing on, in our book, The Proper Role of Government, the 21st Century Manifesto for a Good Government, that you can buy at defendingutah.org, we have some of these quotes that the Founding Fathers taught this principle. So going back to the idea of property and what the Founding Fathers said about that. So Thomas Jefferson, in his first inaugural address, he says, quote, "A wise and frugal government which shall leave men free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned. This is the sum of good government." That's the assent. I think that goes back to what you're talking about. What's the definition of property?
Yeah.
So in other words, we don't have any good government.
Currently, correct. So John Adams, he says, quote, "The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence." So a lot of people, especially today, people that believe in anarchy today, get upset with this term that John Adams uses right here. But the term anarchy has actually changed over the years. During the 17 and 1800s, anarchy, like we see here, is synonymous with big government. And so it's the meaning of it's changed over the years. And so
the anarcho-capitalists are the ones probably getting offended, but that's not really the same thing. This isn't meant to mean. This isn't meant to say freedom. This is meant to say lawlessness, where you've got people stealing.
Right. So now let's get to the idea of the ability to protect themselves. Joseph Smith in the History of the Church says, quote, "Here is one principle which is eternal. It is the duty of all men to protect their lives and the lives of their household. No one has a right to forbid it." And then in an act, well, some people we have that call themselves anarchists that are actually actually call themselves followers of the non-aggression principle. They think that the idea of even defending yourself with violence is a violation of the non-aggression principle. You hear this a lot, but in a revelation from the Lord to Joseph Smith, he commanded, quote, lay up and store his armory in readiness against the time when it shall be said, to your tents, O Israel. And so here the Lord himself is saying to stockpile weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have the right to defend your life and your freedom with whatever means is necessary.
Yeah.
And that's not a violation of non-aggression. It's you're just stopping aggression. You're
right.
preventing stopping aggression that is known to be occurring,
Yep.
or threats that it's going to be occurring.
Let's go to Principle 7, Micah.
Me? It's me time? I consider ourselves at war with international communism, which is committed to the destruction of our government, our right of property, and our freedom. That it is treason as defined by the Constitution to give aid and comfort to this implacable enemy.
Okay. So there are two things in there, and then people will say, well, communism, that doesn't exist anymore, which is ridiculous. But we go back to Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time by Bill Clinton's mentor and Georgetown University professor Carol Quigley. And he helped elucidate more about communism and its operation inside of this international conspiracy that is seeking to destroy the agency of man. In this book, he says, quote, that the conspiracy operates to some extent in the way the radical right believes the Communist Act. In fact, this network, which we may identify as the Round Table groups, has no aversion to cooperating with the communists or any other groups and frequently does so. I know of the operations of this network because I have studied it for 20 years and was permitted for 2 years in the early 60s to examine its papers and secret records. So just kind of I don't know if it's correction, but just kind of a shedding more light on what President Benson was understanding at the time and how new light on. It's not saying that he was wrong because, yes, communism is a threat to our God-given agency, and it is the destruction of the government, meaning the Constitution, not our fascistic Satanocracy that we're living under today. He's referring to, of course, the Constitution. And yes, communism and the conspiracy in general is a threat to our Constitution, our right of property, our freedom, and it's treason to give support to communism or anybody else that would threaten those fundamental rights.
It's treasonous to go against natural law and suppress your neighbor.
Right.
Yeah, there was a girl in my apartment complex that was wearing this shirt. It was a T-shirt, and it said, "The Communist Party." And it showed.
I've seen
it
that
showed
one.
like Lenin and Stalin having a party.
Yeah, it says communism. It's a party. That's what it said. Yeah, and they're like they got their solo cups.
Yeah, I know what she felt like because we had many debates. But she,
I want that shirt, by the way.
She was in favor. she was in favor of communism, and I just thought, you are advocating for forcibly depriving others of their rights around you. Great show.
Kevin, it's a party.
It's a party.
It's cool,
Don't overthink it, okay?
It's like Che Guevara shirts.
Oh, man.
So, treason, though, the word he uses, treason, is so, I think it's a very strong word, and it helps us to really understand that the ideology that is against the three principles that we talked about before in the Bill of Rights, life, liberty, and property, the ability to be able to own property, the ability to defend yourself. They can't coexist together.
Right. It's close to a threat. If someone's advocating, well, that is a threat.
It is a threat. It's not a threat. It's a promise of violence.
Yeah. If someone's sitting there advocating for socialism or communism or fascism, they're threatening everyone around them.
Sure. Yeah. I guess it is technically a threat, a promise.
It's a threat.
Yeah.
It's like I'm vowing to, or I support harming you.
Right.
It's like if somebody came into your neighborhood and said, "I want to shoot you,"
They're saying if they have the opportunity, they will kill you if you do not do what you said. If you don't do what they say.
A threat is the promise. Is basically a conspiracy to create a victim.
Yeah,
that's what. Yeah, it's an attempt. It's a promise to create a victim, which really is a crime.
And this is something that the Soviets explained very clearly, which helps us to understand why we cannot accept this we can't have this coexist. Vladimir Lenin said, quote, "The existence of the Soviet Republic side by side with imperialist states for a long time is unthinkable." So, of course, they said that, well, technically we are imperialist, but now our country is. But they were just saying any free country is what he's saying. So a Soviet Republic side by side with a free country for a long time is unthinkable. Or one or the other must triumph in the end. So he's saying that your life right now of freedom cannot exist for a long time. That they will work to wipe it out with everything that they can. And so you allowing them to exist is basically welcoming them to destroy your life, liberty, and property. And this is on the official Soviet position was, quote, "The struggle against the gospel and Christian legend must be conducted ruthlessly and with all the means at the disposal of communism." And that was quoted in The Naked Communist and was aired over Radio Leningrad in 1950. And there is no peace with them. They teach hatred. There's a great talk by David O. McKay called, what's it called? Shoot. We've got it on our website, but it lays out, I'm having a blank. I'll have to fill this in.
Two contending forces.
Yeah. It talks about how it is Christ on one side, Satan on the other. Agency on one side, domination by the state on the other.
Ron Paul on one side, Bernie Sanders
on the other. So... And then the Moroni gives us
Trump on one side, Trump on the other.
You got Trump derangement syndrome, Micah.
It's because he's just so bigger than life. He's on both sides.
So there's a really important quote, I think, from Moroni here in the book of Alma, where he even gets into more detail. We talked about before about principles. Yes, everybody hates communism, but what do we mean by it's unacceptable to be able to coexist with this ideology? So Moroni said, quote, this is Alma chapter 46, verse 35. "And it came to pass that whomsoever of the Amalekites that would not enter into a covenant to support the cause of freedom, that they might maintain a free government, he caused to be put to death."
And probably I would imagine that if they wanted to be exiled, they might have been able to, but I don't know.
You can't live in that society. You can just... If you're going to live with us, you're going to support freedom, or you're basically dead. And in the Book of Mormon, it says that if everybody was like Moroni, the very foundations of hell would shake. And so, is Moroni a bloodthirsty, violator of the non-aggression principle? I don't think so.
I think he was fed up with people trying to take his liberty.
Yeah.
And he was just fed up with it. He's done. He's like,
you don't have the liberty to take away somebody's liberty.
Exactly. So when people are going around protesting freedom, capitalism, with the Bernie Sanders marches and whatnot, I'm offended. I mean, until I have a credible, and honestly, what they're saying, they are making a threat to their brothers and sisters around them.
Yeah.
Their fellow citizens, that they are after your wallet.
Not just your wallet, because if you don't give up your wallet, what are they going to do?
Oh,
they're going after your life.
You. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, this is a good analyzation of Captain Moroni, and because the whole thing, it sounds extreme, but the reality is the Kingmen were the extreme ones.
Right.
They were the ones that were advocating for satanocracy, for the destruction of life, liberty, and property. And Moroni was merely defending life, liberty, and property, and it required the use of force. And that's what happened. Yeah. And it was good on him. Good on him. That's all I can say. And Kevin's right. They like anything that's advocating for something else is not life, liberty, and property. It's it's offensive, it's terrible, and it really is a promise and a threat of violence ultimately.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy to destroy the rights of people around you.
Yeah.
And whether it's an open conspiracy or in private, it's the same intention.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you can't be conspiring to do that. You either have to play nice in the sandbox or go away.
And if you're not going to go away,
maybe you should go away.
you're going to go away one way or the other.
It's
If Captain Moroni has his way.
Yeah, and people in our society they get so offended. I sit there and like I went to the fireworks show with a friend and I was getting offended at the fact that they spent a fortune on
But they
this
stole
show.
from you for it.
And it was a city
to celebrate your liberty.
Yeah,
because you're not allowed to do it yourself.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's true. We're not allowed to do it. You have to have a permit. So, I'm offended that they are taking my money and using it to have this celebration. And it's people look at me funny, but how?
Because what are you celebrating when they're stealing from you to do it? What are you celebrating when they are actually preventing you from doing it yourself? I mean, in that scenario, we are not celebrating independence anymore because those things that we fought for don't exist.
And fancy that, we started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm hoping that you abstained.
I usually just kind of put my hand over my heart real lazily, usually late, and I just kind of nah.
People like all these like.
I'm just like, everyone,
You
don't
can
throw
change it.
rocks at me.
You
Well,
can change
these
it while
statists
you go. Say
that-
divisible.
Well, sometimes I do
Forget
my own
the
little
end part.
thing where I say I pledge allegiance to the Constitution.
50
Yeah.
nations under God.
Yeah.
Divisible at any time they want.
With a murderous pickaxe. Frenzy of murderous pickaxes.
These statists that make you worship and pray to the government with that mantra, with that these pre-written prayers that to be said in vain repetition.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Was written by a stinking socialist that was against everything the Constitution and flag stood for.
But somehow they've twisted it. The conservative movement believes that it's this conservative ideal. We got to have it in the school every day.
Yeah. And you're a communist if you don't like this communist prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's finish this off with the last principle 8. There's 15 principles in the book, The Proper Role of Government, the 21st Century Manifesto for Good Government. But we're going to finish up today with just principle 8, and I'll go ahead and read that. It says, President Benson says, I am unalterably opposed to socialism, either in whole or in part, and regard it as an unconstitutional usurpation of power and a denial of the right of private property for a government to own or operate the means of producing and distributing goods and services in competition with private enterprise, or to regiment owners in the legitimate use of private property. Man alive, do we do this all the stinking time? We've got our own state liquor store. We've got our own, what's it called? We've got...
How about the post office?
Well, but
How about the California Raisin Board? Or the Molasses Board?
Well, even more local than that. Cities have their rec centers.
Maple Syrup Board.
Oh, yeah. In
We've got
competition
people that
with
are... with their own, with private rec centers. It's obscene that people would be forced to do that.
The city of South Jordan owns that golf course, the mini golf course, the go-kart thing right off the freeway on like 9800 South.
That's crazy.
That South Jordan Parkway Plaza thing. That's the city of South Jordan owns that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do is convert all economic activity into state-run.
Yeah, they slowly do it.
Well, and there's another aspect of it too. Is
they own half the railroads in the United States. The federal government.
The federal government does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you are already having your money stolen from you to pay for something like a rec center,
they're half owners in Boeing.
Do you want to spend your own money for a private gym? I mean, if they've got maybe something, a service that the government one doesn't have, you might think about it. But your first inclination is to be like, well, just go to the thing I'm already paying for.
Yeah, that's the ideal litmus test for a politician. You ask them, would you get rid of rec centers immediately?
Right.
And if they do not give you a solid yes, I would, then you campaign against that person with all you got because they have no clue what
the rec center in my old neighborhood isn't even a good price. It's like $300 for a year or something.
More expensive than
after they're already stealing from you to build this stupid thing.
Yeah, it's like what are you people doing?
It's called waste.
Yeah, it's like they figure out new ways of throwing away money.
UTA,
it's crazy.
Look at UTA. I mean,
yeah.
Look at that 85% subsidized. I mean, it's
Look
nobody's
at the
ever
buses
riding
empty.
it.
It's because it's an investment. Come on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
In our future, in our children's future, our children will not be able to have transportation without this UTA. And the bums won't have a place to live because that's where they live.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, give them a warm place. I know. Instead of, the bums need a warm place to hang out in the wintertime. So let's build $1 billion train for them to hang out on. That makes sense.
Yeah, that works well.
You know, I think if I need to go crunch the numbers, but I wonder how many people you could just buy cars for.
Oh my gosh!
And if it would, with the money that they spend on UTA,
they've actually found with just with welfare programs, just if they were to get rid of the welfare program, don't get rid of the tax, still collect the tax for the welfare, but just merely give everybody in the country $40,000 a year, they would save money over the welfare program's spending right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
$40,000?
There's so much graft.
Are you
in the
sure?
system.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Because of all the grift, it goes through all the, through all the guy that all the tax collector. Then it goes through all the bureaucracy and the government, and the welfare agencies.
Yeah,
all the fraud.
by the time it gets to the people, it's nothing left.
It's a pittance. Because they got to pay all the government workers there. They're $60,000 a year.
There was there's an article on fee, and I know this is a little bit off of the topic a little bit, but the tariff that one of the tariffs that Trump put in for the washing machine manufacturing businesses, they figured that every job created cost taxpayers $800,000 per year.
Wow!
For every job created in the washing machine manufacturing market in the U.S. So their whole idea with these protective tariffs, we're going to protect the washing machine manufacturing business, So we're going to protect those jobs. Well, that cost you $800,000 per job, and I bet those jobs were $20,000 a whack or something. Right. So I don't know. It probably 40. Even if it was $40,000 a whack, you're looking at a 20x. It costs you 20 times more than what you're getting back.
So I want to go after two of the most popular forms of socialism that it is likely the most conservative people listening to this program right now probably support these two popular socialist programs. And the first one is government school, aka government church, aka what most people call it public schools. And it's actually a part of the Communist Manifesto. If you don't think that government schools are socialism, look at the Communist Manifesto, which says, quote, free education for all children in public schools. So, it's not just in part, it is a direct plank of the Communist Manifesto. And the government churches are a tool to be able to indoctrinate the next generation into supporting more and more of the socialism that's coming up. Yeah. In Utah, they make the surveillance state normal, like in all of the schools in Utah. This didn't happen when I was growing up in schools. Every one of the classrooms have cameras. And when I mentioned that was crazy, I got looked at. They're like, "Whoa, you don't want cameras in schools?"
What if something happens? What if somebody picks up a stick? We want that on camera, my God.
What if somebody shoots their eye out with a BB gun? We want to be able to look that up on YouTube and laugh.
And of course, these people are using these school shootings as justification.
Right.
Because that's what cameras do, is they let you watch it happen. What the hell?
That's if they were actually about what you're saying they're about, but they're not. They're about normalizing the police state.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%, and teaching the children to submit to authority, making sure that all ability to think critically, the study of rhetoric is completely removed from the school system. It has no place there.
And why would you ever expect a government-funded institution to be critical of itself.
Yeah, it wouldn't. It's ridiculous.
So this is how we're going to teach you guys to overthrow us and restore constitutional government. That's the next class in government school.
So first what you're going to do is you're going to stand up and you're going to walk out. That's it. First thing you're going to do.
To protect Americanism, you're going to say a prayer to the government every day.
In front of a piece of cloth with colors on it.
So some people think they're like, well, in Utah it's different. Utah schools, they're taught by religious people, and they would never do this. I want to quote to you from...
No one is more brainwashed than teachers, man. I talk doctors, teachers, and medical professionals. No one is more brainwashed than them.
Well, you can't go to 8 years of school without having some sort of brainwashing going on.
Yeah.
So this is, I'm quoting directly from one of the government school books that if your kid goes to government church, they're reading this. Quote, even before you are born, doctors, going back to medical indoctrination, doctors can tell if you are a boy or a girl based on your body. That's your sex. But your gender falls along a spectrum. The craziest part, gender roles are decided by society.
My favorite part of that
This is your family life. This is like teaching you biology. This is biology
So the
class.
kids are thinking, sex, gender, different.
Different, right.
I mean, that's the level of
Total
thought
propaganda
that they're having.
That's what, I hate that whole thing. Like, your gender was decided by a doctor. No, the doctor recognized your gender. He did not say you are.
That's getting back to natural law.
Yeah, that's like this. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, except for those cases.
Well,
where
what about hermaphrodites?
goes horribly wrong.
I don't know. I guess better make a choice.
Well, even with hermaphrodites, it doesn't mean that there's 60 different genders out there. It doesn't remove.
There's two.
You still
or
have,
allegedly a combination of two,
which still has only one of them still more dominant than the other.
Yeah.
You can't. A hermaphrodite still has to be able to find somebody else they can't self-impregnate.
That hasn't been done yet.
No.
Not that I'm aware of.
So this is important to socialism. You have Joseph Stalin. He said, quote, education is a weapon whose effect depends on who holds it in its hands and at whom it is aimed. So who do you want holding your kid's education?
Yeah. And a good education is supposed to make you dangerous. It's supposed to make you smart and clever and dangerous. Government education, government church does not make you smart. It does not make you dangerous.
Well, it makes you dangerous like a baby holding a gun.
Yeah, like that's not really dangerous. That's just stupid. That's stupid.
So the other most popular socialist program that almost every so-called conservative will just loves is the Ponzi scheme called Social Security.
I
remember this? We were doing the research on this.
Yeah, and I remember like a week prior to that, I had this old guy, this client of mine, telling me about how his daughter was coming to visit him because she wanted to know about politics, and I know everything. I know what's going on, and then he said something about how Social Security was amazing, and like glad he's getting his son, and I was like,
for sure.
Yeah, and I was like, Social Security is not legal. He's like, yeah, it is. Like, it's not enumerated in the Constitution. He's like, yeah, it is. Really?
Show me.
Because I've read it like a lot.
It's in Article 10.
Where yeah, it's like, where is it? And he just goes, it's in there.
It's in there.
Well, what article is it in? I mean, can you even tell me what article is in? It's in there. It's in there. He just kept saying, I was like, okay, I'm done with this.
They couldn't do it otherwise.
You know what, old man? Just die. It's fine. You're going to die a couple of years. It's okay. Your lack of constitutional knowledge is not going to matter soon.
Yeah, anybody that believes that supports the Social Security system willingly is there is no upside. Not only is it immoral, but it's certainly not good. It doesn't help anyone. I mean, if you took
Social Security is really designed to keep you dependent and poor.
Yeah,
because it only gives you just enough.
It guarantees
just less than enough to like get you going.
Yeah,
really.
And if you make any more than that, then you lose it. So it's like
yeah.
Imagine it's 12% of your income. imagine if you invested 12% in like a tax sheltered account.
In a freaking
Some
savings
mutual
account
fund or something. Anything. If you put it under your mattress, you'd be rolling in dough by the time you're retired.
Literally.
It's crazy.
And so this is literally, it's a Ponzi scheme. We're talking to Micah about where I remember several years ago looking at the Social Security website where it said, we're not a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, and basically their explanation is, well, a Ponzi scheme was started by Alfred A. Ponzi.
And we weren't.
And we are not Alfred A. Ponzi. Like, that's basically their argument.
And they took it off. We had to go to the Wayback Machine to even find it because it was so
funny.
Ridiculous.
It
was
reminds
classic.
me of the Ebola is real signs.
So if you've got a question, some people will come back and they'll say, I paid into it. I'm just getting my money back. I'm not stealing from anybody. Okay, well, when Social Security first started to pay out checks, where did that money come from? Who was? So you're the first guy to get a Social Security check.
I know where it came from. It came from myself.
Nobody paid into it.
Yeah, that's true.
You had to rob from somebody
Yeah.
to pay the current people getting it.
They just printed money for it.
Well, okay.
Which stole money
Which
from
stole
everyone
the value from
in inflation.
So the next generation,
Yeah.
So the first generation, they're gone. Now the second generation's getting it, and they're like, I paid into it. We're like, no, you paid the first guy. Your money's gone, bro.
Yeah.
You're now to stay on this, you have to steal from the next generation, and then they get in there and they feel like they're entitled to it. They're just stealing from the next guy. Nobody getting Social Security is getting their money back. They're stealing from people they were stolen from. But just like with Bernie Madoff or with the Ponzi, the original scheme that this is named after, you didn't continue on with the theft because you wanted to get your money back. You're like, crap, I got screwed, and the Mr. Ponzi or Mr. Madoff goes to jail, and sorry, you're out of dough. And that's exactly what should happen with this is, I'm sorry, you got shafted. We should maybe come up with some way to help you out.
I have a solution.
Okay.
This would work. So the government has stolen lots of land.
Yeah.
So how about we take all the land, the federal land, the quote-unquote federal land,
yeah,
and then we auction it off for Social Security credits.
There you go.
That wants to, it's like, and then you could go.
You end it, and then you just support the people that are dependent on it because they thought that was what they were paying into.
Yeah, you could take, because they have records of what you put in. They could even put an amortization table in there to say, okay, if you amortize at 5% return over your lifetime, how much credit would you have? And then you could just go to auctions where you buy land. I'd choose that in a heartbeat if I could do that.
Whatever the solution is, though, the stealing's got to stop. This is socialism. We are promoting big government. We are promoting the destruction. Right.
Yeah. First thing you do when you have a major problem, stop the bleeding. They have to stop taking from people. Then they have to figure out how to pay people back.
Well, in any criminal enterprise, the people that started it and that are running it should be in jail. That's kind of they're the ones responsible for the enumeration.
Those people are dead.
No, what the people doing it now?
Yeah, those people aren't dead.
Those people aren't dead.
Those people should be in jail. Now that you mention it,
they should be in dead. That's how it works. If we have a multi-generation criminal conspiracy, oh, sorry, the guy that started it he's dead. Nothing we can do about it. No, the people involved in it go to jail. So this is principles 5 through 8 that we just talked about today in The Proper Role of Government, a 21st Manifesto for Good Government that you can get at defendingutah.org. And we'll be doing 4 at a time, I think, in the future as we go on.
Good number.
So I don't know where it came from. The first one were 4, so we're going to do 4 again. Why would it's been done before? Why change, right?
Dude, admit it. We'll do 4.5 next time.
We'll do 4.5. So make sure and go to defendingutah.org where we think right and wrong, not right and left. Check out our store tab. Pick up all of your great liberty stuff. Also, become a member of Defending Utah. There's nobody else in the state of Utah that is understanding who the enemy is and helping you defend your liberty better than Defending Utah. So go there and support our efforts.
Or send hate mail, and we'll read it on our next podcast.
I love reading hate mail.
Info
it's
at
a lot of fun.
defendingutah.org. We are
That's
listening.
right.
It's true. That's the surest way to get your email read out loud.
Is
for it to be hateful.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
I love hate.
Make sure you're subscribing to us on Spreaker or iTunes, depending on what kind of format you're on. I'm trying to get people to make sure they're listening to us.
I don't care about your agenda. I'm busy having fun.
Subscribe to us on Spreaker. Subscribe to us on iTunes. Make sure you're sharing this podcast with others on social media. And we will see you next time. This is Ben McClintock, Micah Turner, and Kevin Paulson from DefendingUtah.org. This Defending Utah presentation brought to you in part by Anderson Accounting, andersonaccounting.com, Trust Plumbing, 801-808-5470, Higher Calling Firearms, highercallingfirearms.com, Pioneer Family Scholars, Black Lotus Web Dev, blacklotuswebdev.com, American Appliance at 801-254-2566, Shem Financial Services, 801-856-6151, and the law offices of Garrett T. Smith, 801-477-1570, and Kangen Water at championsneverquit.biz.
It's a fact. More photos of you are being taken than ever before. Are you ashamed of your smile? At last, a new technology that gives a brighter and healthier smile in under 2 hours. And it's fully warranted, so you'll never have to worry about your smile again. Call Dr. Jeremy Thompson at Thompson Dental, 801-254-0835, or visit GoNewSmile.com, and we'll show you how you can restore your faded, yellowed, or worn teeth without surgery, crowns, or implants. And it's backed by a 30-day, 100% satisfaction money-back guarantee. This scientific breakthrough will painlessly transform your appearance in one visit. The smile you've been waiting for will never cost less or look brighter than it will today. Call 801-254-0835 or visit GoNewSmile.com. That's GONU Smile.com to revitalize your smile. New Smile. It looks good on you.